Okay, let's get started. Welcome everybody to the 6 p.m. Ogden City Council meeting of August 7th, 2018. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present except for Chair Heyer, who is participating electronically. Chair Heyer, please say hello.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for indulging me.
Just to make everyone aware, Chair Heyer is participating from a very remote location from a satellite phone. You'll note there's just a little bit of delay for council members participating in the meeting as well as the public. Just note if there is a small delay. As a result, he'll have a hard time participating in the meeting, so if he needs to butt in, let's just make sure we accommodate him. I've asked Councilmember Blair to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Will the audience please rise? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please consider joining us in a moment of silence. Thank you. First item on our agenda is approval of minutes for the regular meeting of February 6, 2018. Councilmember Lopez.
Yes, Vice Chair Nadolski, I have reviewed those minutes and found them to be accurate.
For the work session of February 27, 2018, Councilmember Stevens.
Yes, Vice Chair, they're correct.
For the special meeting of March 13, 2018, Councilmember Blair.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Heyer. Try that again. Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Heyer. I have reviewed those minutes and found them to be accurate.
I've been called worse things.
Sorry, Vice Chair Nadolski.
No problem. For the work session and closed executive session of March 13th, 2018, Councilmember Jaburka.
I have read those and they're correct to my recollection.
And for the regular meeting of March 27th, 2018, Councilmember White.
Yes, Vice Chair Nadolski. I have read these and these are to my recollection, and I would like to propose to adopt these minutes.
Second.
Sorry, a little off here.
We have a motion to approve the minutes, seconded a motion by Councilmember White, seconded by Councilmember Lopez. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Oh, thank you, Chair Heyer.
To wait.
Yeah. I hope you all are following my instructions very well. I rule that motion passes. Next item on the agenda is item of common consent for fiscal year 2019 to 23 capital improvement plan amendment related to water projects.
I'll try it again. Vice Chair Nadolski, I will make a motion that we adopt the item listed under common consent.
I second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Blair, seconded by Councilmember Stevens to adopt the item of common consent. This is to set the public hearing for fiscal year 2019 to 23 capital improvement plan amendments related to water projects. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? I rule that motion passes. Next item on our agenda is fiscal year 2019 final budget. This item will be presented by our own Janine Eller-Smith.
Thank you, Vice Chair Nadolski and council members and citizens. I'm glad to have this opportunity to present the certified tax rate and final budget for fiscal year 2019. Before we get into the nuts and bolts, I thought it would be helpful to review for you and for those in the chambers the budget process. It's getting to the point where the budget process is pretty much a year-long process. The council meets on and off between September and December to talk about priorities and council office budget requests. We review financial principles and policies, goals, and objectives that we would like to complete, you would like to complete for the next year. And once we've got those all down, council staff meets with the administration to share those priorities and budget requests in January. So then January through April, the mayor and his administration go through their own priorities and budget requests and put together the mayor's proposed budget. And that's presented to the council the first part of May. And then over the next 2 months, the council meets with each of the department directors to review those budget requests. The certified tax rate is not provided to the city until mid-June, and so we never know exactly what type of revenues we can expect until mid-June. And ironically, we must adopt the budget by June 22nd if we don't do a tax increase, but we have until August 17th to adopt the budget if we do a tax increase. So in that time frame last year, we identified the council priorities, and these are them. I won't read all of them, but one of the most important things we focused on the last couple of years is public safety and other essential services. One of the things that government does best and can only do is provide public safety services and essential services like garbage and roads and things like that. And the other thing we focused on is cultivating arts and culture. And this year we had added a new one, which was promoting economic development. And the budget certainly reflects all of these priorities for the council, but particularly public safety and arts. And I'll just focus on those real quickly. We're doing upgrades to Fire Station 4. There's some new apparatus that they're buying for firefighters, personal protective equipment. All of public safety, police and fire received step and cost of living increases. And then there's also a significant amount of money that's going to facilities, utilities, and transportation costs. With the arts and culture, they doubled the Twilight Concert Series, and you're all going to be lucky enough to hear one of those concerts tonight during this meeting because it's just right out there in the amphitheater. Some great upgrades to the amphitheater itself, the plaza and the water features, and increased activities at Union Station, and increased grants for the arts from the city. So a lot of focus on that in the budget. So this is the third opportunity that citizens have had to provide input on the budget, the final budget. We've had hearings on the 26th of June, July 10th, and on July 10th we also had a Facebook Live event where we answered questions for folks, and so we're here August 7th. So this specifically tonight, this hearing is what we typically refer to as a truth in taxation hearing. It has that title because the state legislature years ago decided it was really important that citizens have the opportunity to weigh in on whether or not tax increases occurred, and so that it wouldn't just automatically get increases because of increases in value. So the certified tax rate is kind of a complicated piece of information. And so I'm just going to kind of do a refresher course to kind of remind you and help those, everyone here in the chambers, to help them understand how property taxes work. So property tax is designed for revenue neutrality. That means that the state and the county calculate a rate that will give us the exact dollar amount that we received in property taxes the previous year, plus any new growth that has occurred. And new growth is new buildings that might have been built, new development that has occurred within the city. So Ogden City's current rate is 003103. That's about 18% of the total property tax bill. And it is a high tax rate. It's the third highest in the state. We're behind Salt Lake City and West Valley. But the reason it's high is because, relatively speaking, our values are low. I just read an article in the Standard yesterday that mentioned that Ogden City's values are 11th out of 15 jurisdictions in Weber County. So that's just in Weber County. And I put up this average, and I used Murray just because a friend of mine who works at Murray happened to mention this number to me about the time I was working on this slide. So the average home value in Ogden for this year is $196,000. The average home value in Murray for last year was $315,000. So it costs just as much to provide police and fire services to a $196,000 home as it does a $315,000 home. And so in order to get the cost to cover those services, the rates obviously have to be higher. So this is the formula that the state uses to calculate the certified tax rate. And so for those of you who aren't math gurus, try not to zone out right now. I'll try and go through and explain it, because it is somewhat complicated. So the assessors go through and they determine the total value of all the property in the city. And they do this actually for every taxing entity. So they do it for the city, they do it for the school district, which happens to be the same property. They do it for Weber County, they do it for Weber Basin, they do it for 911 services. All of this, they use a number, and in some cases it might be a different number. But for Ogden City, this is the total adjusted value. And when I say adjusted, they consider real property, which is land, and anything that's attached to that, so homes, sheds, whatever that is. Personal property for businesses, so that's equipment that they could use, and centrally assessed property, and that's property for utilities that normally have facilities that run throughout the state. So that could be the utilities, the railroad, things like that. So once they come up with an adjusted value, then they subtract any adjustments that have occurred. And this is people have appealed their property values, their property tax rates, and that's been adjusted. And then they also do a second adjustment to that for the collection rate, and they come up with the proposed tax rate value. Then they subtract the new growth, and then they use that number to calculate that certified tax rate. So this is this year, and I went through and updated this slide from previous presentations. This actually includes the city's actual certified tax rate from the state, 002851, which is a little bit lower than the 003103 that we currently have. So the certified tax rate in Ogden, because it's revenue-based, if values go up, then generally speaking, the rate goes down. So here's the history of the certified tax rate for Ogden City from 1992 to 2017. And you can see how there's some ups and downs, but generally speaking, it's a downward trend. And I thought it was interesting, that little blip that's in 1996, that was actually the GO bond that was issued for this building and the public safety building. And that's important for another slide that's a little bit later. So this is using 2017 certified tax rate. You can see Ogden City rate as a portion of the whole is only 18%. The school districts was 51%, so the majority of your taxes go to the school district. The rest go to Weber County and the various other taxing entities like mosquito abatement, 911 services, and such. So this shows the cumulative rate versus the city rate. That top blue line is the cumulative rate, so that's all of the taxing entities in taxing area 25, and there's actually a couple others within the city. And then you can see Ogden City's a little bit below there. And you can see it's a little bit bumpier, that cumulative rate, and I suspect, although I didn't verify this, that those are also when bonds have been issued for either the school district or the county. Trouble with the property tax, the way they calculate it at the state, is it does not calculate in any inflation. It just gives you the exact dollar amount that we received the previous year. And those of us who are consumers, and I'm assuming that's probably everyone in this room, know that $20 today doesn't buy the same amount of goods that it bought 20 or 30 years ago. When I was thinking about this, and I started this last year when we went through this, I went through some history and found the property tax amounts that the city was receiving in 1998 and 1999, so 20 years ago. And then, using a handy-dandy calculator that I found on the internet, I did a present value on those numbers and came up with what the present value. So for 1998, the city received $8.7 million in property tax, and if you run a present value on that, it's worth $12.8 million. In FY18, the current year, that what was proposed in the budget was $11,364,000. So we actually had less real dollars in 2018 than we had in 1998. And that trend continues this year. Doing the same calculation, the proposed FY19, $12.2 million is $1.4 million in actual real dollars less than we had 20 years ago. And that is without any tax increase. That's what we would receive if we didn't do this tax increase that is proposed. So in red there below is if you do choose to go through with the tax increase, that adds an extra $1.2 million. That gets us pretty close to actual dollars that we had 20 years ago. And the only reason we've been able to survive is because we've had some great managers, and because sales and franchise tax have increased a little bit, and because we're lucky enough to have BDO that brings a significant amount of revenue to the city. So the certified tax rate came through the state as that 0.2851, and the proposal is to maintain that current rate with the current rate of 0.03103. So that results in the way we need to talk about it, the way we report it to citizens, is an 8.82% increase. And what that means is we'll get 8.8% more revenue than we would if we did not do the tax increase. The average home value in Ogden is for 2018 is $196,000. And I thought that was interesting because the average home value in 2017, last year, was $167,000. So that is an average increase of 17.4% in home value increase. If your home didn't increase in value this year, because we're just maintaining the rate, there wouldn't be any increase in taxes. But with that increase in value, there does come some additional taxes. The impact on the average home, if you do this tax increase at 8.82%, is $27 a year. And now that is not the difference between what you paid last year and what you're going to pay this year. It's the difference between what you will pay if we just took the certified tax rate of the 0.02851. It's between those two numbers, the 0.02851 and the 0.003103. So that's the difference. So with that 8.82 increase, the average homeowner would pay $27 a year extra. So I thought this was interesting. I pulled up council members' information, their property values, just to kind of see, because I thought, you all live in different parts of the city, and you all have different values on your homes. And so the average increase on your property values from between 2017 and 2018 was 14.96. Now, there was one lucky council member that didn't have his property values increased this year. So if you take out that zero increase, that actually it comes to 17.4, the exact amount that you would expect. One of the biggest questions we get from citizens and concerns is their property values. They will come in and say, look, my property is not worth what you say it's worth. And we have to tell them, we're not the ones saying what it's worth. That's the county assessors that makes that determination. And if you have concerns, your outlet is to go to the county, and you can call the clerk auditor's office, and they can tell you how you can file an appeal on your property tax. They also offer abatement programs. If you fit, there's actually 6 different abatement programs for property taxes, and if you fit certain criteria, you may be able to have some or all of your property taxes abated. So I just want to take a little pause from the presentation and let me know if you have any questions from the council that I can answer before I sort of move on to the next section.
Any questions?
And I know you've all heard that 4 times, so, but we'll move on. The next question, obviously, is if you do this property tax increase, what are you going to spend the money on? During the budget process, the council members met in work sessions with all of the city departments. And what we had them do in those presentations is identify for you some of their biggest challenges. And it was really interesting because we know from that police and fire are really struggling right now to find good qualified applicants and to keep them here in Ogden City. But we were really surprised to find out that retention and recruitment was the #1 issue across all departments. We're losing planners, we're losing engineers. It's really been hard to keep good employees here because we're not at the top of the salary level. And although our benefits are good, other cities are better. Another of their challenges, equipment and infrastructure needs. And the third one was just the shrinking availability of state and federal funding. And so because of that #1 challenge, this budget focused a lot on employees and trying to do whatever it took to keep our really great employees here with the city. We learned that half of the non-sworn staff, so that's half of everybody that's not a police or firefighter, turned over in the last 5 years. And if you're in business, you know that we're losing a lot of efficiency when that happens because we spend a lot of time and resources in training up employees. And so it's really important that we can do whatever we can to keep those good employees. Vice Chair Nadolski asked that I include this in my presentation because I've reviewed it for you before. this is employees per 1,000 population. In 2016, and I didn't take the time to update this number for 2017 for other cities, but in 2016, employees per 1,000 on average was 8.92. In Ogden City was at 7.09 in 2016, and 2017 we're 7.17. And with the additional positions that were added in the tentative budget, that would bring that up to about 7.2, so just slightly. So what are we going to use that $1.2 million for? The biggest chunk of money is for a public safety loyalty pay program. The council adopted a joint resolution with the mayor to fund this program in March. And from March until the end of June, the departments had enough money in their own budgets to fund that program. But for ongoing and maintaining the program, it requires an additional $500,000. And so that's the number one amount that is going, that this $1.2 million will go to. Two other proposed items are for Union Station operations and capital improvements. And then for two other positions, a full-time diversity officer. We have a diversity officer that's currently part-time. Diversity Commission asked that be full-time, and that's just an additional $40,000 that would be ongoing money, and then an additional accountant for the comptroller's office. So that, with that $1.2 million, that brings the proposed final budget up to $186 million and change. That doesn't include the MBA or the RDA budgets. You've already adopted those. This is just the city budget. So with that, I don't know if council members have any questions, and I'm happy to take notes as citizens have questions or comments, and to answer those if I can afterwards.
Any questions from anybody?
The one thing I think we need to review just briefly is what the CIP basically, and I don't know if this is for Mark or the mayor, of what's happening down at the Union Station. Can you just give us a brief synopsis as what needs to be addressed at Union Station?
Well, let me see if I can find that. Lisa, do you have that real handy?
I think the mayor is prepared to respond.
Okay, Mary, that'd be great.
Well, the short answer to that is just about everything. It's had no operations and maintenance for the most part budget for the last 12 years. We have found problems. I mentioned in the work session that there were wiring issues right over a grease trap. We were afraid 2.5 years ago it had the potential to potentially catch that grease trap on fire and burn the station down. There are a lot of wiring issues, boiler issues, plumbing issues that just have not been looked at. As mentioned, this CIP is just a small dent in what actually needs to happen to get that up to its best and highest use. So we could drill into those individual details if you want, but those are all expensive fixes. And there has been some asbestos cleanup and some other things that we discovered as the city took Union Station back over and went in and tried to stabilize it. So there's a great deal of need over there.
Okay, thank you.
I do have the specific list that the comptrollers provided. It's elevators, it's lighting, it's masonry repairs, it's a boiler, it's furnaces, it's ceiling fans, it's bathrooms, downstairs and upstairs. So pretty much everything.
I'd add two really quick. A lot of people might not know, but we're having the sesquicentennial, the 150 year of the Golden Spike being driven at the Union Station next May. And that's going to bring close to 250, 300,000 people in as the estimate. And so those bathrooms and some of those fixes are really critical now so that we're ready to handle that large of a group of people as they come through.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the council?
I have a quick question. Of the $62,220,000 dollar budget in the general fund, how much of that, or about the percentage, is that of public safety, or is public safety of that?
So public safety is about 28 million. Yeah, police and fire together is about 28 million. So
Significant portion of
almost
that.
half.
Anyone else? Hey, Brandon, will you bring me the sign-in sheet, please? Thanks. My council peers are quiet since this is the final hearing of a months-long process. Okay. That's okay. Thanks, Brandon. Okay, since the council is done with their comments or questions, we're going to open up to you guys. Before we get started on public comment, just by a quick show of hands, can you just raise your hand if you intend to address the council either way on this item? Okay, thank you. About 12 folks. Okay.
Fast estimate.
So believe it or not, for public hearing, 12 is a fairly high number. So what we'll do is we'll take your comments one at a time. We'll give you 3 minutes each to address the council. If you want to ask us questions, by all means, go ahead and do that, and we'll give you answers. But we don't want to butt into your 3 minutes of opportunity to speak. So we'll let you continue to speak, and then when you're done with your 3 minutes, we'll try to answer your questions. Okay? So if you guys can just come up, this is a public comment period. This is your opportunity to address the council regarding your concerns on this topic. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and tell us your name before you get started.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Fru, and I'm a resident of Ogden pretty much my whole life. We're retired people on a fixed income. We represent a lot of other seniors that are hurting right now money-wise and are concerned about the tax raise. I know last year city employees got a 21% increase. The year before it was a 35% increase for our fire and police department. My question to the governor or the mayor is that he mentioned the Union Station and what improvements need to be done there and how many people that's going to bring in. How much money do you oppose that these visitors are going to leave in Ogden City at that point? Where does that money go? Then does it go back into Union Station, or where does that go? Mayor Caldwell.
Continue to, are you done with your public comment? We don't want to.
No, okay. And another question is, there was a windfall from the state for the internet taxes, and governor's already committed to giving education some money from that $661 million that he anticipates. Why can't that go for education and tax relief for the people of Ogden City? Mayor, if you could address that one question about the Union Station.
We'll address your comments when you're done with your 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm done.
Your questions. All done? Okay, thank you.
They're great questions. The internet sales tax that is going to be collected, the cities don't see any of that. So we don't get an offset for that, even though we provide services to every street, road, and mailbox. If I order from Amazon, UPS trucks are driving up and down our streets all the time, but there's no leave behind to help us maintain that infrastructure. So that's a question that cities across the United States, as the retail market shifts, are looking to address. Union Station visitors, we hope that they come in and spend money in the restaurants and buy dinner while they're here, and if there's a price for admission, that will really help. But the Union Station event itself is intended to be free, so a lot of people get to come out and get to be a part of that reenactment. The state budgeted just over $1 million for the statewide celebration. Some of that will be spent at Union Station, but none of it directly goes to operations and maintenance and facilities. So we'll see a leave behind, certainly, as people buy hotel rooms and restaurants and shop in our stores, and that'll give us a bump, and that money can help offset future years, and we do intend to keep all of that here and locally. But there's not going to be a charge gated admission to get into Union Station that we can then use as ticket revenue to offset some of the expenses.
So we, the people, cannot ask the governor to help out then with taxes?
Ma'am, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next public comment.
Thanks. I'm Tracy Ehrig, E-H-R-I-G. And I have had the privilege to work at Union Station since the foundation took over in 2004. So I have a unique view of it, I think. The community loves it. People come from all over the world, and we get to talk to them and find out what they think about it. They love the museums. That is wonderful. They do often comment about the dilapidated state of repair and that it's embarrassing to us to have to host people in the condition. And even just the front, the sandstone in the front, in the 14 years I've been there, just watching it crumble, it's got too much love. People would climb on it and take pictures on it, and it's just gonna fall down. So that's one of the first things I think that's getting addressed to repair it. Plus, so I'm supporting the budget, of course. And if improving the station is going to increase tax revenue, it's going to make our community a more desirable place to live. And people will spend money. They'll spend a little more money buying a house here because it's more wonderful to live here. That's what I believe will happen. And also public safety, I want to support them as well because I call them about once a month for I need a police officer, or I need not a medic, but you know what I mean. I need paramedics, and they always, bam, they're right there. They're a great team to work with for us. You guys have done such a great job supporting us, taking the station on in March, starting in March, and that is so appreciated. It's a community place, and the whole community should support it, and they're all going to get the benefit from it. Thanks.
Thank you, Tracy, for your comments and for your work supporting the station. Next.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Boris Stevens, and I have lived in Ogden for 47 years. My property value went up $34,000 since last year. That's 17.4%. And I realize that the real estate market, the shortage of homes, has really caused the value to go up, including rents for apartments. But it says here in the standard, the law is in place to prevent local governments from getting an influx of money just because property values have gone up. So if you if you go to the certified tax rate that the legislature sets and the assessor sets, the fact that my home is worth $34,000 more, at the lower rate, you're still making more money. And if you maintain the inflated certified tax rate, you're making a windfall. And everyone is asking for a higher tax rate because all the properties have gone up in value. The schools asked for it. Thank God they turned it down. I was at that meeting. And it wasn't the people that are employed by Ogden City Schools that voted no. It was the citizens. Okay, now, also it says Caldwell and others in the administration, they would get an additional 1.2 per million in the budget necessary to do things like properly fund city services and fairly compensate city employees. The key word here is fairly. I know that a couple of years ago, management got 4% pay raises, but the everyday worker bee is on a pay for performance, which the fire and police department turned down the pay for performance pay scale. And so that's totally subjective, so that if your manager tells your supervisor, which I know for a fact has happened, that you don't go over 1 or 2%, we got to keep the budget down. All right. So I was at the meeting when the fire and the police wanted a pay raise, plus they get incentive bonuses of $1,000 to $5,000. Who else for the city gets that? My husband's worked for the city for 30 years, only got 1% in 2 years.
Thank you, Patricia.
Is my time up?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Doug Olson, and President Kennedy cut taxes and very few of the city, county, and state governments increased taxes during that time. And he showed that he had an increase of money. How did that happen? Well, it's called a multiplier. He increased the multiplier. In other words, money was going through more hands and created more revenue for the country than he had before. Now, if you haven't, the federal government making a tax for everybody, supposedly to help their economy, and then you have city, county, state increasing the taxes. What if they equal out? What does that do to the economics of it? Zero. In other words, you have to be very, very careful doing those kinds of things. Otherwise, you ruin what happens. The other thing is Ogden's got a lot of property, commercial property, that has been on the market for a long, long time. Fred Meyer is a good example. And I just had my property on 9th Street sold last year to an attorney out of Salt Lake that was going to put a clinic in there. But it was supposed to connect up with the hospital that was going on 12th. And the hospital on 12th, nothing is happening. And I can't figure out from anybody in the city whether that's going to be a go. The attorney said, I don't think it's going to be a go, and he backed out. So it's a very important part for a number of reasons to make sure that commercial property in Ogden is filled in a very short period of time, because every one of them means jobs. And if you want to see an issue that's coming up very quickly, jobs are the key for not only city, county, state, for the nation. They figure that they'll lose 80 million jobs in the next 10 years from just higher IT and robots. Now that has to be taken care of, and you have to start right away. So it's my hope that the city will make something about that and really concentrate on those kinds of things.
Thank you, Mr. Olson.
Good evening. My name is Dave Graff, and I'm here to speak in support of the tax increase. In running any organization, whether it's a private organization or a public organization, 85% of the cost of doing that is in the people that make it all go. Ogden City is running or paying its people 72% of its budget. I peeked over this gentleman's shoulder and looked at a slide that said 85 or 72% of the budget goes to people within Ogden City. So you're doing it very efficiently. In today's employment situation, if you have a job to offer or to fill, there is less than one person available to take that job. Actually, it's 0.9 people for every job that's available. That's a tight hiring marketplace, and it makes it very difficult to find good candidates and then to keep them. There's another statistic in today's employment market that struck me, and that's that people are quitting their jobs more than ever because they can find a better job somewhere else very easily. People are looking for good people. So if Ogden City needs to hire, seek, recruit, hire, and train people, that's a tremendous expense. If that all takes place only to have that individual leave, we've lost money. It pays, in my mind, to employ that person at a higher salary or a higher employment income and keep them than it is to lose them at a lower salary or lower income and have to seek, recruit, hire, and train another person with the possibility of losing them. So our people are very important. We talk about the quality of our city. Again, it's amazing to me the need that our streets, our sidewalks, our curb, our gutter, our water systems need in this town. We have ample parks, but a lot of them need an upgrade. Last year, we got a brand new library remodel up in Leicester Park. We had a contest to involve the community in creating a new park design. The design is beautiful. When's it going to happen? As soon as we've got money. Vote for the tax increase. Thank you.
Thank you.
Graf.
Okay, I just want to know, I don't mind to pay property taxes, but I bought my house, manufactured home.
Ma'am, before you go further, can you state your name just for the record?
What?
Can you state your name just for the record?
Oh.
Thank you.
Herminia Herrera.
Thanks. Sorry to keep going.
Okay. I don't mind to pay property taxes, but I bought my house, manufactured home, in 1999, and my property taxes have been rising year after year. My question is, you don't have a top money to pay limit money to pay property taxes in the manufactured home, all manufactured houses. No? You don't have a top.
Please continue, and we'll answer your questions after your 3 minutes is over.
Okay. I just want to know I am nervous. Sorry. I want to know when you raise the property taxes, the escrow go up, the insurance go up, and the mortgage payment go up. So I want to know if there is some way I can try to find some kind of way to know how I can pay less money, because I live with a Social Security, fixed Social Security. And something else, my land is sandy and toxic. I plant many trees, and the trees don't even grow or die. So I don't understand why the taxes go up and up and up. How you know my house is worth that money? They say more than 100,000. Cannot be true. If you go to my house and see. That's it, all I can say.
Thank you so much.
And I just want to clarify the question. Was it about the manufactured home? Is that what you're asking? Yeah, about manufactured home.
So it sounded like a lot of your questions before we take the next one. Let's see if we can help answer. I think she is looking for opportunities or information on if there are opportunities for relief with taxes, and I believe there are. Mr. Johnson, can you help with that?
There is, but that's through Weber County. She would need to contact the county, Mr. Hatch's office, and they would be able to give them information on how to apply for relief. And also they could dispute the value. So not only would they get relief, but they could also dispute the value that has been assessed this year.
Right. So not to put Mr. Hatch on the spot, but Ricky Hatch is in the back. He is the Weber County Clerk Auditor. He's here to view the proceedings, but if you have questions about your valuation, I'm hearing a theme of a lot of folks have their taxes are going up because of value. Ricky Hatch is in the back if you'd like to speak to the county.
Be nice to him, though. He's a nice guy.
Correct. Okay.
And their phone number again?
Do you have it handy?
You want to call? Oh. Maybe not.
Oh, maybe.
We'll repeat it later.
Okay, thank you.
There's a certain date that they have to do that by in September, so.
Date, and then there are several different reasons why you could also get the tax relief.
Okay. Sorry, thank you.
Donna Stevenson, 3 points. Just because a home is increased value doesn't mean the person living in it has increased money to pay the taxes, higher taxes on it. There's no increase in their income just because their house has gone up in value. And if they sell it to get the value out, then they have to pay for a place that costs more. So it's hard. I hate paying taxes for public entertainment. I think that's a total waste of tax money. I want to spend money for my own entertainment to choose what I want to do. I don't want to have to pay for crappy entertainment that I have no interest in seeing. And I don't think that's a need for the government to provide that. People can find their own entertainment. Also, if I wanted to live in a socialist country, I could move to any country in Europe. America is supposed to be government only for the very strictest needs, and let people develop businesses to create money for their country and for themselves.
Thank you.
Hello, Angel Castillo. I live at 25th and Harrison. I am in full support of this budget, and I actually think you should probably spend a little more on my pet priority, and that would be public safety and essential services. 10-15 years ago, Ogden was a very different place. People were afraid to walk on 25th Street, and we've had a boom of businesses with having community-sponsored events, which are essential for business development and attracting people to the area. We relocated, my husband and I relocated here from Los Angeles in the Arts District, and I know firsthand how city-sponsored events and public art are attractive to people and businesses when they are in an area, and it shows a vibrancy and a connectedness to the community. It is unfortunate that a government costs money to run, and we do have to find a way to pay for these things. And while I understand and I hear everyone's concerns in the audience about fixed income, I myself personally have dealt with this with my mom, and it involves refinancing. And we find that money to go ahead and pay the taxes so that she doesn't have to worry about it, and it's my problem when the house becomes mine. But getting back to public safety, I think it is absolutely essential for business development to have a strong police force presence. It's a proven psychological fact that an empty police car parked outside somewhere will drop crime. We are losing an incredible amount of officers to Salt Lake City, and we need to keep our seasoned and trained officers here. Now, I realize that we've put a stopgap on that, but I want you to seriously consider, if anybody is thinking about picking apart this budget, I am 100%. You don't touch the police services budget. I think it's imperative that people's children have a sense of safety as a community, that we continue to see a police presence, that programs are in place for the citizens to connect to the police so that they can understand it's a community relationship for everybody. I think the budget is sound, and it doesn't seem very radical to me at all. And we all have to pay our fair share to live in a beautiful place. And if we don't continue to build the infrastructure and place the things in our city that are attractive to new businesses, to bring in new jobs, to bring in tourism money, and that would be entertainment and law enforcement and public art. If we don't continue to do that, the last thing anybody wants to see is us to go back to 10, 15 years ago when there's an undesirable element and people don't feel safe walking the streets. I'm in full support of this, and I hope that every single council member votes yes on this in its entirety and not to pick it apart. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Castillo.
Good evening. My name is Dan Green, and I am here because I am a concerned landlord. I own 42 properties within the city limits, and I probably have a residential unit in most every neighborhood in Ogden, so I feel like my properties are a pretty good representation of what's really going on in Ogden. When I got my tax notices this year, I was just a little alarmed. And I appreciate the presentation and the statistics that were given. In my own particular case, I'd like to just share with you that my property, the proposed assessments across the board on my Ogden properties increased 26%. And the taxes themselves have, the proposed taxes show a 23% increase. Now, that's just a little hard to deal with and to swallow when you're in this kind of business. It makes it hard to do good business because the only answer is to try to pass that on to the tenants. But to be honest with you, most of my tenants are low income and they really struggle. And when I have a rent increase, I start to lose tenants. They look for other alternatives to move in with other people, share rent or whatever. I am not opposed to taxes increasing along with the cost of inflation. I think that's completely reasonable and fair. Inflation's around 3%, I believe. That's a far cry from the 23% increase I'm going to receive this year. So I would just ask you to consider this, and I know that there's everybody has their needs and issues. This is just my issue. And it's a concern, and I just wanted to be here to voice my concern because if it's happening to me, I know it's happening to a lot of other people too. And so I would urge you to consider keeping the adjustable rate like has been done in the past so that it doesn't have such a big impact on certain individuals or, well, actually everyone collectively. But I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Green.
Hi, my name is Steve Perry. I am very grateful this night for the members of the public services that are here. They are very well represented. It is a great comfort to know no matter the day nor the hour that you're able to pick up that phone and receive the help that you need, no matter what. The big question that I've got for each one of you is, how much money is it taking to keep the airport afloat? I feel like it's coming at a very high cost to provide a good old boy program out there for the pilots, the plane owners, the employees. That's the biggest question I've got is actually what is it out-of-pocket expense for each one of us taxpayers? Not all of us that live in Ogden City are able to receive a six-figure income. There are many of us that, and you might laugh at the phrase, that live in the slums, but in comparison to the home values that are being projected, I'm having a hard time seeing it. Please address those issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Would the administration be able to take a stab at that airport question?
Lisa's going to cover that one. We do, while Lisa's going to give that, what we subsidize, I would say that the airport is having more and more economic development taking place, and with some of the things that are being talked about right now for the airport, I think this number that we subsidize the airport could drastically go down in the next year or two or three.
Yeah, if we look at the history, it varies each year. So our internal agreement is the general fund subsidizes any cash deficit the airport has, and that runs between anywhere from $200,000 to $600,000 a year. If you average that over the past 10 years, it's about $500,000 a year. And again, we implemented parking. We have parking fees out there. That's added maybe $30,000 in revenue a year. So that will help reduce that deficit ongoing. And the more commercial development we have out there, the less that they will have to rely on general fund subsidy.
Add that we track jobs very closely and what's created out there. And with Northrop Grumman and a few of the other companies that have come in, we've created almost 500 jobs in and around that property. And that could go extremely high in the next 2 or 3 years, depending on what happens with some of the defense contracts and other things that they're moving now off of Hill. So we're very aware of that. We appreciate your comments there, and that's something we're aggressively looking to address.
Thank you. Mrs. Campbell, thank you for your patience.
My name is Amy Campbell, and I'm the resident of Ogden and also the principal at Ogden Preparatory Academy. So I can only speak wisely to the police force because I work with them a great deal. And I'd like to say that in the past 5 years that I've been at OPA, I have had 8 different officers, and they change hands. Their beat changes often. And in speaking to them, the reason for their leaving is usually a poaching. Big poaching right now by the Bountiful Department is coming to get our officers, and also the Salt Lake Department. So I worry about that because you can't build a great relationship with your community without having good officers and quality people in those locations. So do I want a tax raise? No. But then more recently, this spring, my house, my personal residence was burglarized and $12,000 gone out the door. And the officers responded, but when they came, it took them 45 minutes to get to the house, and the first thing they said was, "We're sorry, we're shorthanded." I don't ever want to hear that from a police officer, and not because he's saying something wrong, but because it was the truth. And he did everything in his power to help me and to help us and to recover our things, and yet that hasn't been done because of that, a person on foot carrying all your goods out of the house, being chased. It's a time frame issue. 2 weeks ago, my neighbor to the east was robbed, and she had $10,000 worth taken. And my neighbor to the west was robbed 3 months ago. So and of course at that time, then you get online and start looking at what's happening in your neighborhood, and cars are being joyrided and cars are being ransacked. And it's not because there aren't good quality officers, it's because I don't think enough of them, and because we are getting poached by other services. So I would leave you with those thoughts.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Please.
My name is Arnell Rivera from Ogden. I do echo her sentiment. I have a son that's in law enforcement, so I certainly appreciate the city, or whether it's city or the county, trying to raise the revenue so that those people who protect us on a day-to-day basis can have a proper income. And so I understand that. I do understand the need for increasing revenue. But I do have to echo what a couple of people have said before, that just because our property taxes or our property values have increased, it doesn't mean it's a gain, or we're realizing any gain in our pocket, in our income. I just see it as, many entities as an opportunity for them to, when property values go up, that it's another income source, or at least to raise the income for those entities via taxes. So I would ask you to just remember that just because a property tax or a property value have gone up, whether it's $100,000, $50,000, doesn't mean the homeowner has gotten any more money in their pocket. And what you're doing by leaving the certified tax rate, or the tax rate higher than the certified tax rate, is essentially raising the taxes, thus more money out of the homeowner's pocket. So I understand the need for revenue. Somebody mentioned, it costs money to do these things. But the problem, I work for the federal government. What I see day in and day out, and I handle finances for my unit, what I see is not the fact that we don't have enough money to utilize. The problem is how we utilize those funds that we have that's been entrusted to us. And all too often, what I see is that people, because it's not their money, there is no prioritization. There's a lack of stewardship, if you will, of that funds that's given to them. We tend to just want to buy without looking at what our actual needs are versus what our requirements versus what we want. And oftentimes those two get mingled like this. And I'm asking you, folks, do you look at what are the needs, what are the requirements versus the wants, and are you prioritizing those? One of the things that I'm really concerned about is I don't know how much the city will subsidize if it goes this way. The rapid bus transit program that they want to implement, $75 million. How much of our taxpayer dollars go into that to replace Route 603 that is empty every day, all throughout the day, from 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock, however long it's running? I challenge each and every one of you guys, look at the bus transit. Look at the buses that's running along Harrison Boulevard, the route that this RBT is taking.
Thank you, Mr.
How many
Rivera.
people do you see in those buses? None. That's very inefficient.
Thank you. So I think Mr. Rivera asked the question is if we are evaluating our needs or our wants versus our requirements today, needs versus wants. Did I get that right? I'll just rephrase what was in part of the presentation. This process started in September where we evaluated as a council our priorities, our shared priorities. We came together in a retreat setting, shared what our individual priorities were, worked together as a group of 7 to come up with our shared priorities. We then took those priorities to the mayor and his administration prior to their budget retreat, shared what our priorities were, asked that they be reflected in the proposed budget. The mayor's administration worked through what they felt their needs and requirements were of the budget before they proposed it to us, and we have been working through that process ever since. It has been a long process.
Can I address a little bit of that as well?
Yes, of course.
So 3 years ago when we had and were faced with increasing the taxes for the first time since 1987, one of the things that the council did at that time was require the administration to implement a 5-year financial model and a budget plan. And we are continuing to work with that financial modeling, and you'll see some further information come out of that, including some citizen survey type information where we'll be able to know what those priorities are from the citizens as well. And then the second thing, and this is my 5th budget, but I continue to preach metrics and actionable items. And one of the things that I'm really proud of is that our council staff and administration has really worked hard to bring those efficiencies forward. And so not that assurance is, and trust are the words that you don't probably always want to hear, but we do look at those and we are requiring that of each department that comes forward. So we are addressing efficiencies in a time where we don't feel like government is being efficient, but we are trying to address that. I just wanted to make sure that we got that.
Thank you. Appreciate you adding to it. The next step in our process is we actually asked really similar questions. I liked your questions because we were asking a lot of the same. What does the community want? What does the community need? And the next step in our process to further refine that, we'll be pushing out an RFP, a request for proposals for a citizen survey, so that we know, rather than relying on us who engage with citizens and hear from citizens, to try and understand what citizens need, we also want to hear directly from you. So that'll be the next step, and that'll help inform our 5-year financial sustainability model that Councilmember White was referring to. Thank you for your questions.
I think the budget reflects just basic needs of service. I don't think there's any real glorified needs that we're doing, but when we review the budget, we review it as basic needs of service to the citizens. And if there's any areas of cutting, the administration has gone ahead and looked at those areas and assessed them. And if there's any adjustments there, we'll make the adjustments there.
Thank you. I think we have more.
Can I jump in on that really quick? I just want to give one piece of context to that. When we started this process in January, one of the things we recognized that the chief brought up was that we had almost 600 open positions in law enforcement along the Wasatch Front. And it's been said a couple of times that different departments were poaching some of our best people. We did an analysis and realized that it was almost $85,000 to hire a new officer, get him through post, all the training required, everything else, than to just have them poached and go to Salt Lake or somewhere else that had a little deeper pocketbooks at the time. When I came in, it had been probably 5 or 6 years since a lot of our guys had seen pay raises and stability in pay and everything else. And this was a goal to stop that hemorrhaging. We can't afford to pay $85,000, put somebody through a year's worth of training and have them leave because we weren't being competitive with what the rest of the market was doing. So the majority of this request to the citizens is to take care of those that have been taking care of us and to reward their loyalty in staying with the department. You learn a community. Every community is different. It takes, I've heard, up to 5 years as you're going on patrols, learning the streets, knowing where the pockets are, knowing where you can get in front of crimes so that they're not happening. And to lose all of that experience is absolutely critical. I will say, it was mentioned 10, 15 years ago, Ogden was a little grittier and a little scarier. We didn't have the same types of activities you hear going on and people coming in to spend money and wanting to invest and get involved in the community. It was pointed out today that not only are we not even, we're not one of the most dangerous cities, we're not even the top 10 dangerous cities along the Wasatch Front because of the efforts that these guys have all made. And that's something that I felt very strongly about rewarding and very strongly about stabilizing and saying thank you to everybody that's been involved in that. Stability is the key to keeping that Part 1 crime going down and getting the community to believe in themselves again. So I appreciate that. That's a little more detailed than was certainly presented in the information, but I thought it was really important to clarify that.
Sorry, there was also one more question about the amount of money we're spending on the UTA BRT project. So the total project cost, we just had this discussion in our work session. UTA was here to discuss a memorandum of understanding. Total project cost is $79 million, which is going to require $23 million of local match. Of that $23 million of local match needed, $100,000 is coming from Ogden City for design. We are making in-kind contributions of $3 million.
We're working on 2 roads that are being used as match along the route. Right. Chair, one other thing I'd say is the 603 is the number 2 busiest route in UTA's system when school's in session. When school's not in session, the buses run fairly empty because most of what the 603 is students going to Weber State University.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, we'll have to follow up after the meeting. We have more comment from the public, ma'am?
My name is Holly Andrew. I've been very fortunate to move here and live here and work here in this wonderful city. And I would like to just toss my comments along with all the other comments that have been said today that I'm in favor of the tax increase, and having personally experienced being in a low-income situation, it is very hard and it is very frustrating. But if we don't be good stewards and invest in those resources that not only protect our citizens, but also engage and enliven and inspire and ignite their curiosity, then we lose sight of who we are and our civic identity. And I personally would like to remind people of our civic identity with the resources that we have here. It's not only just the police force, but our civic buildings and the people that we are as a community are represented in these spaces, such as the Union Station. And so this, Union Station has a long railroad history and has touched the lives of many of the people that have come here throughout time, and we've been very appreciative of that history. And it's a very unique situation that we have here, not only with those who have served us in our civic duties, but also in our communities and other educational opportunities. So I would just, hopefully, you guys would keep that in mind here as you guys are evaluating those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Andrew.
Hello, I'm Scott Atkinson, president of Local 552, representing the professional firefighters of Utah. I'm also an Ogden resident. I live just north of 7th Street. I've worked for Ogden City for just about 14 years, and I'd like to speak in favor of this tax increase. During my time here, it's been mentioned in the past that for many years we didn't get any raises. 8, 9 years, I believe I was here without a raise. And I only bring that up to let you know how grateful I am personally and my members are for the efforts that have been made by the council, by the mayor over the last several years. Even with the improvements that have come with our pay, both departments, both fire and police, continue to lose people. I know that's not news to any of you. I'm not sure if it is to the citizens, but we're continuing to lose, even though we're now somewhat competitive. What you're talking about in this budget, I think, will have big impact in allowing us to retain and keep qualified, good, educated, intelligent, and dedicated firefighters on the streets. I know just since this has happened, since this was brought up in June, I believe, was formal discussions, 2 firefighters I know of specifically have decided to stay here rather than go, just with the potential that this budget might have on their lives. By keeping those people here, it allows us to continue to provide an excellent service, but not just an excellent service for today, but for years to come. We're talking young people that I think this will help to have them invested in the city and keep them here for their whole careers. So again, I just want to let you know I appreciate the efforts of the council. I appreciate what has been done, and I see a lot of value, and I can tell you from our perspective, there is a lot of value in what you're talking about, and just want to leave you with those thoughts.
Thank you for your comment and your service, Mr. Atkinson. Thanks for being gentlemen.
Nice.
My name is Officer Kevin Pickett. I'm the current president of the OPBA. I echo the comments of the previous firefighter, and we are very grateful for the efforts of the council. I personally have seen, I've been an officer for about 5 years. I started with a group of about 5 people. I am one of only one other officer in that group, so there's only 2 of us left. And I know each group that has started, we're seeing similar numbers. We have great trainers in Ogden City, in our police department. It's a lot of effort and a lot of time to train our officers, and we have a reputation as Ogden officers of being extremely competent and extremely good at our job. Unfortunately, that also lends to other agencies trying to come over and pull us into their agencies. I think this longevity program will go a long way towards helping us retain our officers. And by creating that longevity, we're going to see better services to our citizens. And hopefully we can build our numbers back up, and the response times will get a lot better as well. So again, I appreciate the efforts of the council and the mayor, and that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you also for your service, Mr. Pickett, and your comments.
My name is Tyler Brinkerhoff. I am a student at Weber State University, and the thing that brought me up to Ogden was the public history program there. It is the only program in the state that teaches students how to properly know their history with the public and museum studies and archival studies, where you can be able to get a minor in it. I plan to get a master's in public history, so this has been a very influential opportunity for me. Growing up in Utah, there was kind of a stigmatism for moving to Ogden. My parents were a little afraid, but having the opportunity to come here has not only given me a vision of the beauty of Ogden, the mountains, the amazing opportunities we have here for recreation and development and potential and history. 25th Street has just made it so I have been able to not only develop my education, but my career and my family. I met my fiance up here, and we plan on staying in Ogden. Otherwise, we had never even considered coming to Ogden in the first place. She works at McCady Hospital. I feel like Ogden is a growing community and an opportunity for us to all to invest in our future. And part of that is at Union Station Museum. I was able to get a job there, which has given me an opportunity to have an income as a student in the field that I am going into, which has given me unparalleled access to the archives and the beauty, the amazing wonders of the like the history that we have here on 25th Street. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Brinkerhoff.
My name is Sarah Singh, and I am the Curator of Special Collections at Weber State University. I've been there for well over 20 years, and one of the things that I do is I research the history of Ogden. And I go out and I talk to people about Ogden and talk about the history of Ogden. And over the last 20 plus years, I found people in Ogden are thirsty and hungry for their history. And so I'm really in support of this budget, especially not only for the public safety, but also for the Ogden Union Station. I think there is a missed opportunity if we don't improve the station and build it into what it could be. I think there are some real interesting potentials that can happen with the Ogden City and with hopefully Weber State building into that and making it a nationally recognized museum where people come, and not only come just once, but continue to come. A few months ago, we did an exhibit at the Union Station on World War II. We had over 4,000 people come specifically for that exhibit, and they wanted it permanently. And it shows that people in this area love their history and want to have a space where they can be able to go and view it and bring family and bring people from out of state as well. So I just wanted to let you know that I was in favor of the budget. Thank you.
Anybody else? Brandon, while he's coming up, can you get me the sign-up sheet? I want to make sure we cover everybody. Thanks. Sorry, go ahead.
All right, my name is Paul Garrity. I'm a resident here. I live here and try to find work, try to do things for you guys and to help out the community. And I'm here to say that these taxes are killing, the low-income people in Ogden. They're struggling, going through things, and we're trying to find economic growth and value in the city. And all I see is condos getting built, and I see, telemarketing centers, and I see all this fun stuff for kids, where they can go out and spend all this money on taxes where we're paying, for entertainment and all these great things. But I do not see prosperity in this town, and I see the city as wanting more and more money. It's been too greedy and too corrupt for a long, long time. And I've had personal encounters where I've had 9 or 8 cops at my house with your code enforcement people trying to say that I don't have, my rights. I have 4 or 5 vehicles that I fix. I'm a welder fitter. I've busted my butt, and I do a lot of things, that help out the city, and I also do things for me. I can't have a travel trailer in the city without all these requirements and things that you guys push upon us, and all of a sudden the taxes go up like 32%, then 22%. It's getting to be where Ogden people are getting mad. Our house values are not what you guys say, and there's no way you guys can kind of say that the value of these houses are that value, unless you're going to buy my house. I mean, I've seen too many raises in this house, and I think that you guys have been getting raises, but people haven't been getting what we've been asking for. And I think that we need prosperity in this town. We need jobs. We need to get rid of the Union Station. The Union Station that's got great history, but we're not profiting from it. It's been a cancer sore of Ogden. And we have all these things that are costing taxpayers crazy stuff, like all the golf courses, all the other things that do not make sense in this town. Most of the businesses are down in Riverdale, and the businesses in Ogden are at the depot. But the businesses can be around the Union Station and all these other places if we allow that. And I'm had it with these guys. I've had the police come and arrest me and throw me in jail when I come to your guys' courthouse to question why I have fines on my property for $1,060. I was put in jail by police officers, and these cases are pending, and I am upset, and I am very mad. And I come down here to tell you guys that you guys need to try to do a little bit better job. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Garrity. Anybody else? Yeah, we need to make a motion first. Last call. Any more comments from the public? Anybody else? Okay, this is a public hearing. I'll entertain a motion.
Vice Chair Nadolski, I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Blair, seconded by Councilmember White to close a public hearing. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Okay, thank you everybody for your public comment. That was a long conversation. I hope your questions were answered. If they were not, and I know at least in the case of Mr. Rivera that he wishes for follow-up, can't address follow-up here, but we'll make ourselves available afterward, okay? Any comments or questions from the council?
One of the questions that arose that if our property value goes up, maybe we need to clarify that a little bit, what we actually get. Maybe Janine, you can maybe fill that in.
There was a lot of confusion about our decision tonight about the rate versus the values of their homes.
Is that a actually increased value there? So
looks like Janine's gonna reach into her resources for presentation.
She has some slides ready for that.
So I did include a couple extra slides just in case you had this question. So when citizens say their property taxes keep going up, it's true. So this is actually one of the council members' properties. What you pay for taxes and the value of property, it's all public information, so I was able to pull this up. So the blue line represents the market value of the home from 1990 to 2016, and you can see taxes in the orange line. It tracks pretty well. And so when I was looking at this a couple of days ago, I had the question, well, you know, I'm just going to tell these people that when their property values go up, the rate goes down. How come property taxes still keep going up? So I actually made a phone call to Laura Lewis, who's our financial advisor, and asked her this question: why are my property taxes keep going up, even though because of the way the certified tax rate is calculated, it thinks it should go down? And it's really interesting. There's so many factors that factor into taxes, especially over a long period of time. For one thing, when they calculate the certified tax rate, that's calculated on the city as a whole. And so there's many things that can affect an individual property's value. So, for example, if, in fact, they're sort of trying to back into a number, and so not every property is going to be affected the same way. So as I showed you earlier, in one case, one property, council members' property didn't increase in value this year. And so that could happen to other properties in the city. Other impacts have to do with the way centrally assessed property is assessed. And I'm not sure I even understand all of that exactly, but it does impact the final value. And there's other things too. Every time a bond is put in place, that affects your taxes. So from the same citizens example, I just took the market value from 1997 to 2017 and then to 2018. And in that 20 years, you can see the property increased 132% in value. The taxes increased 118%, so not as much as the value, so that would be sort of what you expect. But then if you look at Ogden City's taxes, in that same period, they only increased 47%. And it all has to do with all of these numbers that go into this big pot, and it would take hours and hours and hours to try and explain how it all works. But those are the issues that impact people's taxes, is bonds and all of the other jurisdictions. You have to remember too, each individual taxing entity goes through the same process. They all operate independently. That number up there, the $1,900 is in red because I knew that that's the cumulative rate, and the school district did not increase their tax as they said they would, but I wasn't sure how that would affect that total taxes paid. So that's why it's in red. And I don't know if that really answers it. I'm just trying to say that it's complicated, and you can see that taxes haven't gone up at the same rate as the market values.
So in a recession, do we gather more money in a recession than in an increased economy?
The rates will go up in a recession. Whether it will only not necessarily gather more money, because remember, the rates are based on the prior year's revenues. So if in a recession your property values go down, and you can see the big drop-offs in 2007, 2008 period when the recession happened, the rates went down, but the property, the amounts that the jurisdictions received would have been the same. I mean, it started to go up in 2008, sorry. The rates go up when the property values go down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I probably got that backward. But.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Sir?
Vice Chair, if I can jump in on that real quick. One number I wanted to leave everybody with. I appreciate Ricky Hatch from Weber County being here. You go a lot of places and hear a lot of this conversation, so I appreciate you being here and being willing to sit with it and listen to some of the questions. One of the things that kept coming up was property value. There's no way my property is worth that much. There's no way that I could go sell it on the fair market for that. And there's a phone number. The assessor's office at Weber County is 801-399-8308. And that's where you would call and ask and say, hey, I think I've got an argument for my property not being valued that high. Weber County's assessor's office does all the valuations for every residence and piece of property in Weber County. And I think it's to the tune of about 110,000 different individual properties that they have to evaluate and make some of those estimates of. So they're willing to talk to people if they think they have an argument. I'd encourage you to call Weber County's assessor's office. They've always been agreeable, and again, I appreciate Ricky being here for that. But any questions about the value and whether you think that's accurate or not ought to be pointed to Weber County Assessor's Office. That's what they're there to do, and like I mentioned, they do a lot of these, and they're certainly willing to work with people to get some of those questions addressed.
It's also my understanding that some people that do protest their value are successful in lowering their appraised value
And again, that number is 801-399-8308.
I too want to thank Mr. Hatch for being here, not only to listen to the conversation and comments from the public, but also to be here as a resource to help answer some of these questions. It's
Vice Chair Nadolski, can I just, you made a comment about if people do protest that they get a, actually on the website, Weber County's website, they say 70% of people that file appeals get some kind of reduction because the way they calculate is they're not coming to your house, obviously, and do an appraisal on every house. They're using computer models and cells, and so they're just sort of estimating what they think the value of your home is.
okay. Any other comments or questions from the council?
I just have a couple of comments. There's also the abatement program there's 6 available abatement programs. So there might be programs out there to help you with those property values or those taxes. And I also want to remind individuals that Ogden City is only 18% of the whole entire tax bill. So it's not 8.82% on the entire tax amount. It's only on the 18% of what Ogden City is collecting.
8.82% of the 18%, for a total on average of $27.17 per year per taxpayer. Okay, thank you. Are the
Acting Chair Nadolski.
Chair Heyer, please.
I am having a hard time staying connected. It takes me a minute or two to get back into the meeting. So if I drop out just before or during the vote, I will be on as quick as I can.
Noted. And Mr. Garside, our communications specialist, is keeping me apprised of your status. Thank you. I was going to ask Councilmember White, those 6 abatement programs, can they be accessed at that same phone number?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's on the Weber County website.
Okay. Thank you.
I think. Is that correct?
Any other questions or comments from the council? If there are none, I will entertain action on this item.
Vice Chair Nadolski, I propose that we adopt the ordinance 2018-24, adopting the certified tax rate at the 0.03 whatever percent their tax rate is.
I second.
003103.
Would you like to clarify your motion, Councilmember White?
No, I'll leave that up to Councilmember Blair. What was the
Okay.
0.00?
3103.
And I seconded.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember White to adopt proposed fiscal year 2019 final budget, which includes a certified tax rate of 0.003103, and that motion has been seconded by Councilmember Chaburka. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair.
Aye.
Choburka.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez. Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember White.
Aye.
Vice Chair Nadolski.
Aye.
Chair Heyer.
I believe we have lost him temporarily, unfortunately, as hard as he has tried. Would you like to try him again before we close the vote? It's on his end. Can we hold the vote open while we wait for him to call back in? Thank you. Appreciate your patience, everybody. We'll give him just a minute or two, see if he can make it.
Vice Chair, while we're waiting. We
won't
can't.
be having conversation while we hold the vote open, but we'll come back to you. Okay, Chair Heyer, are you back with us? Chair Heyer, are you there? Chair Heyer, are you there?
Vice Chair Nadolski. You can just treat it as if he were not here. And just.
Okay. He's worked really hard. I'm just trying to honor his effort to participate in the vote. Chair Heyer, are you there? Okay. Looks like we'll move on. Thanks. That vote passes. Okay, it's been a long meeting. We appreciate your patience. Hopefully you're understanding. We do have an opportunity for public comment. This is an opportunity for you to address the council regarding your concerns on any topic of any kind. Ma'am. Please come on up to the mic, please. And again, state your name for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Patricia Bohr-Stevens. I will go back and refer again to what it said. The law is in place to prevent local governments from getting an influx of money just because property values have gone up. My qualm is not with the fact that my house is worth $34,000 more. My query is that you're not following the law, which says that the certified tax rate should go down, not up, just because you want more. We voted in and gave you the ramp tax for the arts. But yet, I've read that Caldwell wants to take money from the water utility, to help promote more of the arts. My front yard has got a 6-foot sinkhole, which we took a picture of by sticking a shovel down in it. My curb and gutter is sinking, and in 47 years, I haven't been able to get anybody from Ogden City to come look at it. But you want to paint the streets downtown. So my issue is this. The law says when my property value goes up, your certified tax rate should go down. Are you above the law? And is your vote moral?
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. We did not address that comment in the first go-around. My apologies. The law states that if we adopt a rate higher than the certified tax rate, we are required by law to hold a truth and taxation hearing. That is what tonight is. We are therefore following the law to the T by holding tonight's hearing. Anything else to add to that, anybody? Okay. Comments from the mayor.
Yeah, I'm not sure where you got your information. I'm certainly not looking to raid the water fund to do arts projects. Water is an enterprise fund. Any of the revenue generated in that fund has to stay in that fund. We can't pull that out and do different things. There's a utility fee that goes into that pulls some of that out, that goes to pay for legal work out of our attorney's office, that goes to pay for the accounting that we do internally. Just the general fund usually pulls a little slice out of that to help pay for all the rest of those services. We're not looking to pull money out of the water fund to do arts projects. I can assure you that. I'd also like to thank you all for being here. Getting up in front of a group like this and letting your voices be heard is not second nature to everybody. It can be an intimidating process. We appreciate you coming down and getting involved and letting us know what you're seeing and hearing in the community, whether it's on either side of that. It's what makes this process more transparent and fair for everyone. It was mentioned that we start this process in September for the most part. This gets passed, we put it on the shelf, program it, and then we start working for priorities and how to do more with less starting in September. And that is a year-round process. So I really appreciate the council staff and all the hard work they've done, our accounting group, all the department directors that have committed to doing this and to that process. And I certainly want to thank again our public safety for everything you guys provide. This is, I think, a big credit to you and to the value you provide to this community. We can't thank you for what you do enough. And I appreciate all the council members. I know that during the budget processing period, everybody's run a little ragged because it is so thorough. And you do look at every dollar that's spent. It is examined, it is measured, and it is prioritized. And we appreciate your involvement in this as well. So again, I thank everybody for getting here. It's always a kind of a momentous occasion to get the budget finally passed. We can put it into the state, who also reviews it to make sure that some of these things are fair and to the letter of the law, and it's audited to make sure that there isn't an opportunity in cities to divert funds and do things that aren't completely above board. So I appreciate everybody being here and appreciate the process.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One thing before it falls through the cracks, the sinking curb and gutter, could you help address that, please?
I'm going to have Mr. Louder address that, if that's okay.
Well, and maybe you can grab her when the meeting closes and get all the contact information.
So, ma'am, the sinking curb and gutter you mentioned, this Jay Louder's our Public Works Director. Okay. Good to know. Thank you. Comments from the council?
Can I say something as the newer member? I just want to say I appreciate so much everybody coming and making comments. I think that, as was said, it's very hard to get up in front of people, and I just want you to know that we are listening to those comments and taking them into consideration. And also that I hope that you stay engaged through the upcoming process so that we can hear more about some of these concerns and issues. Because I think we all are very cognizant that this impacts different people differently. For me, as a new council member, I have to say that I've enjoyed the budget process. I know maybe it's hard to say enjoy, but I've really learned a lot. I'm still learning more about it, but I feel like it was a really thorough process. I really admire all the hard work of the staff, for the council, but also for the administration that they put into putting it together, and the department heads for finding different ways and creative ways to solve some of these issues that are really challenges in the city. I don't think, in my mind, I don't see anything in the budget that's above and beyond, something extreme that we want, that we don't need. I really feel like we're showing a true investment in the people that are working in the city, that we do need someone to show up when we're having some challenges in our neighborhoods. And we need to make sure that we're investing in the infrastructure of places like Union Station, because we hadn't done that for a very long time. So that's the way I see it, as an investment. I know that can be very painful for some people, but I have to make that investment so that I can live here. Right? So that's all. Thank you.
I'd like to comment along with that. I appreciate you coming in and voicing your concerns and your ideas, and that helps out our process considerably. I'd also like to thank Janine Ellen Smith for her presentation. She probably explained it as well as anyone, so that we could all understand the importance of what our tax money goes to. This was a hard decision. When I got my tax bill, my taxes increased 24%. I looked at it and says, okay. 2 years ago, I got it also, and that amount was manageable. The last year it was manageable, but we went ahead, and this year we're going to have to make some adjustments. But the value of where our money was being spent is a great asset to the city. Our police and fire is probably the element by which we can have a safe community, and I appreciate the effort that they go through. In 2007, we had a decision to make whether we're going to increase our water. 3 elements was touted by the residents of Ogden to make sure we correct, and we corrected those. But it came with a hard decision. It came with sacrifice, It came with a cost. And now we have the best water system in the state. We can run water through our city from the north end of the city to the south end. If just after that, and just after 2007, we had a water break, and we had to provide water to the north end because we couldn't supply the water to them. We had to have bottled water. Today, we can do that. And that was the result of us not throwing the can over the hill, down the lane, and we went ahead and made the improvements that needed to be made. This tax issue that I looked at this year was in that same category. I've been on the council, and every year I've been on the council, they talked about Union Station. And we have thousands upon thousands of people going into Union Station. If you look on 25th Street, what do you see? You see 25th Street, and at the end you see Union Station. It's time for us to make sure that we can take care of that so it can still be part of our city. It's part of our history. It's part of our culture. But it's a gathering place. People gather at Union Station. When we have the farmers market, we go down the end of the Wall Avenue and cross over into Union Station. And so it's important for us to take care of that entity of our city. This was not an easy decision. In fact, I talked to Chair Heyer, and I've talked to you, Ben, and I asked Janine to provide some information in our work session, and I wasn't comfortable with it. But after I saw the results of what the tax was going to be used for, then I was comfortable in casting that vote for the taxes. It'll be hard for us, but we'll continue to move ahead and make the adjustments where adjustments need to be made. And the city does the same thing with the funds. They adjust and take care of those funds that are given to them through the budget. And so, if you want to call me and give at any time, you're welcome to do so. And I'll be glad to talk to you at any time.
I will. First off, I would just like to, I don't know if any of you knew this or not, but this was Vice Chair Nadolski's very first ever chance to run a meeting, and this was quite a meeting to have to run. So I think he did a very good job on a very difficult.
Said when
topic.
he shut me down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Second,
Let's edit that part out of the video, please.
the memory of our first one. That was. Number two, I too appreciate everyone coming. Those who were, who spoke positive of the certified tax rate, and those who spoke negative of it. We need to hear both sides, and we need to hear how people feel. And this is my 9th budget, and I can speak for everyone. I came in thinking, I'm going to fix this. We're going to get this taken care of, and we're going to do this so everyone's happy. And our city, the city budget this year was $186 million, and I think we could have a budget of $500 million, and there would still be needs that would go unaddressed. And I think that the administration does a wonderful job of meeting with each of its departments and addressing those needs, and spreading we truly have limited funds, and we spread those funds where we feel they're most needed and where we'll get the most return on those investments. And I'm proud of the budget. I'm proud of the budget process. Every year the budget process gets better. I can't imagine what it was like when Councilmember Stevens first started, but it's been great. This has been a great budget process, and I too, even in my 9th budget, I've learned so much, and this is the biggest crowd we've had at a budget hearing. And so I thank you for coming. I thank you for the time that you took. And again, it's not easy to get up, but I just want to applaud everyone that put time and effort into this budget. And I'm excited about the direction that the city is moving in. And it was mentioned here, whether you were for or against it, everyone mentioned that the city is a different place than it was 10 years ago. And that's a positive. And I like the way the city's headed. I like the vibe that our residents have about our city, and I'm proud to be a member of the city council and a member of our city, and thank you.
Good time to recognize Councilmember Lopez.
I was just kidding.
Yeah.
I was. I was just going to say very, very quickly, I just wanted to thank everyone that came and spoke here today, or that came to be at the meeting today. That's always great to have people at the chambers and to hear from everyone. I also wanted to say that I'm sorry, and I apologize to any of you who feel that the outcome of tonight's vote and the tax increase didn't go in your favor. I understand what it's like to live in a tight budget. I thoroughly understand that. For many years, my family and I lived under poverty guidelines. For many years, probably more than 10 years, I was supporting a family of 5, and my family qualified for, my kids qualified for free and reduced lunch at schools, at the public schools, and my family qualified for CHIP for medical assistance. And I remember there were tough times, very tough times, and we had to live in very, very modest means. So I understand where you're coming from. So it was a really hard decision for me to vote and to approve this increase. But at the same time, I recognize that our city, there are great needs in our city, and that it's just the nature of running a city and growth to support and to have the funding that we need to run the services. So I just wanted to thank you for that and for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
One more comment?
Absolutely.
So I too want to thank everyone for being here. I don't think we've had this many people in the chamber since we talked about chickens. So I appreciate everyone being here and stepping up and speaking. That takes a lot of courage. I want you to. I want to just kind of echo a little bit what Councilmember Stevens said, and you need to remember that we live in the city too, and so. What happened here tonight also impacts us, and not just, other citizens. So I want you to know that we are part of this city, and a lot of questions and numbers were run just to make sure that we felt comfortable. But I think we made a decision for the whole, or the city as a whole, and not just necessarily one person or one council member up here. And lastly, I want to really talk about being committed to figuring out ways to keep our employees here. This year, the firefighters and our police officers, I think somebody used the word, we're being poached, and that is a true statement. And we have leadership within our organization that really thought outside the box and came up with some ideas that gave our officers and firefighters a loyalty program. And I think thinking outside the box is very impressive in a city where, or in government entities where we think that it all happens the same over and over and over again. And so I wanted to recognize the outside of the box thinking with our leadership and our officers. And I'm one of those people that didn't think other employees were leaving, but they're getting poached, and we need to keep them as well. We don't have as many as other per 1,000 people in our city, so we need to keep the ones that we have here. And so we'll continue to think outside the box. We will continue to listen to you. And thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments, everybody. I want to just...
Chair Nadolski?
Oh, yeah. He's back. He's back. Okay. Chair Heyer.
I made it back.
Thank you.
I made it back. I appreciate the indulgence of allowing me to be remote today. I do want to thank also the public that has been there. That is essential to our way of government and the way we do our work. And I especially appreciate the administration and the approach that they take to putting together a budget, and not to mention our staff who is working so well to make sure that we get our priorities put inside the budget and make it all work for everyone. It's been a long process that we will start over again tomorrow, and I very much appreciate being part of this process and representing such a fine town. And if the record cares, I do vote aye on the vote.
Thank you, Chair Heyer. You made a varsity effort to be involved in today's meeting. For those that don't know, Chair Heyer has an annual family outing that he treasures with his family, and you can't time that annual thing with this kind of a meeting. So he really felt it important to do everything he could to be involved in this, and we really appreciate those efforts, Chair Heyer. Thank you. This has been an exhausting process, and like Chair Heyer just said, we'll begin again tomorrow. I'm not picking on you, Mr. Rivera. I'm actually agreeing with you. Your comments resonated because the questions that you asked are the questions we asked too. And it's August, and it's been mentioned that this process started in September. September is right around the corner. So we're tired too, but there are a lot of decisions in this job, and I reflect on them heavily. This job seems to come down to decisions at the end of the day, and I can't think of a single decision in the almost 3 years I've been here that was harder than this one. My wife can attest to this, but I haven't slept well in weeks, and I'm not known for my sleeping, but I have had so many nights where I've sat up with panic about this decision. I had no idea how this vote would go today. I honestly was bracing for a little bit of a rodeo, but because in our conversations with one another, it is a practice for us to communicate with each other, but it is also a practice to not take straw polls, to not know what your vote is or to ask what your vote is. We respect one another's independence, and we respect the decision that they make. And I can tell you, I was moved by how much the other council members struggled with this. And I know how much of their heart went into this. And if you're upset with the decision, I apologize. I hope that you know that we're doing this because we care, and that we're not taking it lightly. I shared with the folks in the work session my rationale that I have been considering as I tossed and turned at night. I wanted to make sure that any tax increase that came before me was reasonable and responsible. We've covered, reasonable to me is not a big increase, and it better be responsible, and I think this was responsible because it hasn't been done for decades, and we are trying to recoup inflation. We are having a really hard time running this city without being able to recoup inflation. We still haven't done it. We're still below the level of inflation from 1987, but we're trying. I also want to know that any increase is incremental, that it's small and incremental so that it doesn't hurt people, it doesn't change their budget right out of the gate. And I know that there are valuations of property that have that's created a lot of consternation. And again, I'm glad Mr. Hatch is here to help us address that. But I also want to make sure that anything that we decide is sustainable. And incremental is a really important part of sustaining our ability to serve and provide services for the community. And I hope that we can garner support from the community as we continue to try and provide those services, because we really do need a budget that works for Ogden. And of course, thank you to all the police and fire that were here tonight. The importance of your salary issues tonight did not come to the forefront because of all of the things on our plate tonight, but it has in the past, and it can't be understated. Your loyalty is so important, and we hope that you appreciate our loyalty to you. I know that this was a political risk for us. There were political consequences, but every time I think about that, I just feel so selfish, because your risk and your consequences every freaking day pales in comparison to this risk and consequence. So I'm very proud of all of you for being here. I'm so proud of all of you for serving here. I sure hope that this pledge of loyalty adds to your loyalty, not only to one another, but to your loyalty to Ogden. Please pass that along to your peers and your comrades. We need each other, and there is no other place like Ogden. So I hope your loyalty stays here, and I know it will. Folks, that wraps up our meeting, and if we have, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Lopez, seconded by Councilmember White to adjourn. This is voice vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I guess
This meeting is over. Thank you so much.